Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk, coming to you from Nassau Community College on 90.3 WHPC, also streaming on the nccradio.org. Tell your friends they're going right now online, nccradio.org. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com. You can find it on nccradio.org, the wonderful podcast that is put up. So this program is repeated again this evening, on Sunday evenings at 11 p.m. So if it's 8 o'clock in the morning, you're right up here fresh. If it's 11 o'clock at night, then you are suffering from insomnia, and you can, of course, get to sleep by listening to me at 11 p.m. So hi there, my name is Rabbi Perl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This all depends. And when you are listening or watching, Gewalt, you know what Gewalt, when people are asking, what's the word Gewalt? Every week you repeat the same thing. Rabbi, enough already. Okay, I listen to you, Gewalt. You can see us on Facebook Live at WHPC or on my page at facebook.com, Anshel Pearl. So hello on the radio, hello online, and hello on the world. And hello to Gene Brandonston, who represented us all at the Good Deed Awards for Long Island teenagers. Thank you so much. How can I not begin by wishing all the mothers out there Happy Mother's Day. Kim, what are you doing for your mother? I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot here. Any particular? She's going
I sent her a beautiful card so far.
Oh,
my mom's not local, so we're not doing anything. But I did celebrate Mother's Day with my children yesterday because my daughter lives in Philly and works on Sunday, and I work, and so it worked out better to have a Mother's Day on Saturday.
Okay, very fantastic. Well, happy Mother's Day to you, Kim, and to everybody, all your mothers out there. We appreciate all that you're doing and continuously doing, and wishing everybody long life and good news. So I first want to start off with, it is Mother's Day, and thank God if your mother's alive. Take an opportunity to say hello to her. But I really want to begin today by telling you about so many people that are lonely. They won't be getting a call from their children or relatives. Even before the COVID pandemic, an endemic of loneliness was compromising really our physical and mental health, and even our life expectancy. So despite people being more connected than ever, right? We're so connected with smartphones, with FaceTime, with WhatsApp and social media and Zoom and Schmoom and Boom. Loneliness, my friends, continues to rise. Among the most digitally connected teenagers and young adults, loneliness nearly doubled in its prevalence between 2012 and 2018. Of course, coinciding. Can you imagine? There became more and more loneliness, but at the same time, it coincided with the explosion of social media use. So, shows you, my friends. According to the Census Bureau's American Time Use Survey, a decade ago, that's 10 years ago, the average American spent 15 hours per week with neighbors, with friends, and even clients, which shortened to 12 hours per week in 2019, and only 10 hours a week in 2021. So on average, Americans did not transfer that lost time to spouses or children. Instead, they chose to be alone. Can you imagine? In a very powerful and oft-referenced study coming out of Brigham Young University, found that the risk effects of loneliness and weak social networks parallels smoking. It equals to what? Can you imagine, dear friends? It equals to 15 cigarettes a day. Can you imagine? Social interaction is not a luxury. It's a basic need. And at this study compares the need for connection to our bodies like the need for food. Just like we need to eat, we need to have interconnections with people. A study published in the Nature Neuroscience found similarities in brain scans between participants who had been socially isolated and those deprived of food for 10 hours. Good morning to Patty Fuchs. Good morning to Jeffrey Hirsch, Linda Zellickson. Unbelievable. As connected as we are online, people are increasingly disconnected offline, which creates feelings of loneliness and having a terrible impact on our health and well-being. I often think of the advantages, amongst many, of course, and not exactly the most important, but we all know the importance of coming to synagogue or to your house of worship on a weekly basis. The whole week you're alone. You're in this place and that place. Coming together in the community actually gives people life, gives people meaning, people's interactions. We learn from other people. While there is no vaccine for this epidemic, there is a solution that is much less expensive, less painful, and immediately accessible to all. And I want to tell you, I've seen this, and I'm sharing this with you because it's so important for us. And I want to challenge everybody to join me in this effort. What am I talking about? Harvey Manis, Dr. Harvey Manis wishes us all a happy Mother's Day. Thank you, Dr. Manis, a leading, wonderful individual here on Long Island who's made an impact in so many different ways, in so many different faith communities, and takes a leadership role in so many worthwhile causes. So we want to welcome you, Dr. Harvey Manis, also known as Chaim. To life, l'chaim. They actually made that song in your honor, Doctor. Eliminating someone's feelings of loneliness can be as simple as saying hello. I think I mentioned to you last week that in San Francisco, there was a particular policeman whose job was to follow up on the young people. So many people had committed suicide. And he was sent to do the investigation, the discovery, to see if he could learn something from these sad situations that could be applied to help other people. In one such case, my friends, after a young man, 30 years old, jumped off the Golden Bridge in San Francisco, they went to investigate, and they came back to his home, and they found a note. And what was on that note? It said, if somebody will smile to me on the way to the bridge, I will not jump off. Obviously, nobody did, because he did jump off and lose his life. Simply saying hello to somebody, but really saying it with meaning. You know how many people say, how you doing? They're not even listening to the answer afterwards. But to do it with sincerity, to say hello. New research in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology has found that people underestimate how much others like hearing from them and how big a difference it can make to someone to simply receive a text or a call from someone saying hi. And I try my best on Erev Shabbos, that's on Friday, to say hello by texting, to saying hello, and to try and reach out to people who I know are lonely. Put differently, taking a moment to check in on someone can mean the same thing to them as giving food to someone who is starving. We have a teaching in our Mishnah that says, Reb Masi ben Choresh Omer, Have makdim b'shloim kol adam, which translates, upon meeting people, be the first to extend greetings. And the great commentaries explain, Harei zeh hatzlacha hayoser gedola shetasik ba'olam hazeh. Again, the translation means, and this great sage explains, greeting someone first is the greatest success you can achieve in this world. What do you talk about, greatest success? You were having a big home, having big cars, having a lot of money. Isn't that the definition of a success? Hello, along comes the great sages and tell us the biggest title in a community, the most successful person is not the one who may be praying the longest, learning the most, or giving the most charity. It is the community's biggest connector, the one who is friendly and warm, who smiles at people and creates connections with others. Wow! If you don't know what to text or say, it's very simple. Just say, hi, checking in, baby. Been too long, let's catch up. That's connection. That's social nourishment and nutrition. This can make a difference between someone's happiness or depression, success or struggle, and even literally between life and death. And so therefore, my challenge of myself today is to make a better effort to reach out and to let everybody know. And in fact, I'm asking you to join me in this challenge. If you know somebody who is alone today, on Mother's Day, or at any time, let us know, and I will make an effort, Metz Hashem, Bli Neder, to make a phone call to them on an ongoing basis, or a text if they have texts, and of course, email, whichever. And together, let us work to try it out. In fact, I'm sure you know that in Newsday last week had a huge spread on the sadness of loneliness. So please, join me. My phone number is 516-739-3636, or email rabbiperl@chabadminiola.com. If you want to talk about this, want to join this effort, but let's make a difference. And I will conclude with this little biblical story that shows the difference. It's all about Joseph. You all remember the story of Joseph. That was the son of Jacob, our forefather. He finds himself in prison. He's released from prison eventually. But what was the catalyst? He was released from prison and then becomes the viceroy, and he saves humanity at that time. He becomes second to the king Pharaoh. He analyzes the as you well remember, the story with the dreams. But what kicked it off? How did he find himself in this position to be released from prison and to rise to this such position? He had been abandoned by his family, as we all know, with his brothers. He'd been sold into slavery, no less. He'd been falsely accused and sentenced to prison. But instead of retreating to the corner of his cell, which would be natural, and wallowing in his own sorrow, focusing on his own suffering, he took notice one day that two of his cellmates looked very sad. And he asked them, Madua penechem ra'im hayom? Why do you look so sad today? Grateful for his asking, they confided about their dreams. He successfully interprets them, and later on one of them recommends Joseph now to Pharaoh. Can you imagine? His entire destiny was changed, and he became what he was and saved his own family and the Egyptian empire during that time, all because of what, my friends? 4 words. Why are you sad? If we want to get out of the prison of our own lives, to break free from that which is holding us back, that's closing us in, let's learn from Joseph. Just notice somebody. Make that smile. Give them a call. Whatever. Write them a letter. Whatever it may be. Instead of just looking into ourselves, to be concerned with those outside as well. We must take notice, care about and inquire about people around us. As a young man, Joseph was concerned with himself, right? We all know how he began. He was beautifying himself, looking in the mirror. He talked about his dreams instead of about asking about others. But then he grew up. This young child who struggled with narcissism, learns to turn outward, concern himself with others. Instead of just obsessively looking into the mirror, he now looks through the window and he sees others. He matures to the point of asking fellow cellmates, why do you look so sad? What can I do for you? How can I make you feel better? Tell me what is happening in your life. I am listening. So, like Joseph, too many of us flaunt our dreams, are obsessed in looking at the mirror constantly. But like Joseph, we too can mature. We must learn to take an interest in other people. When we see friends, family members, and co-workers, instead of just sharing our status and our metaphorical selfie with them, let's ask them, Madua penechem ra'im hayom? Why are you sad today? Or take an interest in what they're doing. It's all about that, about caring for others. And that's why my challenge today to everybody over here, welcome Abner Zarabi and to Lynn Feldman and Joseph Kavanaugh. Thank you all the way from New Jersey. Is think about something. Today, dear friends, yes, thank God if you have a mother, call her and, of course, celebrate with her. But if you know someone else who has a mother who may not have anyone calling them, or anybody who may be lonely, I think there could be no greater good deed today on Mother's Day is to reach out to somebody who is alone and just wishing them a good day. You may feel uncomfortable suddenly, out of the blue to call. You can blame it on me. Tell them that Rabbi Perl, I are listening to a program, and he told me to call you up and wish you a good day and blessings and all the good things. You never know where that person may be holding at that particular moment and what you are doing with your phone call. So thank you so much, and this is a wonderful time for us to be able to appreciate what we have. Let's move on to a little other aspect of our conversations today. I want to talk about the words, the power of words, what a word really means. We generally think of language as a conventional of words, arbitrarily chosen for the purpose of communication, to be able to ensure that our speech and our writing is understood by others, right? So we say words. The names of things, however, are little significance of what they really are. If you don't mind me quoting Shakespeare, what did he say? A rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Usually an object precedes its name. First it exists, and then it's given a name. But if you look in our world regarding creation, the Torah tells us God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. The name not only predates the object, but is the means through which it is created. A rose by any other Hebrew name, therefore, wouldn't quite smell as sweet. Sorry, Mr. Shakespeare. Hebrew words and names are not arbitrary. They are a definitive, and they express the true nature of things. The biblical word for rose, Shoshana, is rooted in the word Shoshana, which means that changes, communicating that its beauty is in its delicate suppleness, its softness and responsiveness, and its ability to change, shona, in response to touch. Hebrew words are therefore understood to provide insight into the nature and the meaning of things. Just think about your name. I mentioned Dr. Manis's Jewish name, Chaim, means life. And I would dare to say that he has dedicated his life to Chaim, to life, for that very reason. It reflects the name Chaim. I'm going to give you some examples of the power of the word itself, of a number of issues. Therefore, Hebrew words are understood to provide an insight to the nature. So if your name is Chaim, you are a person who brings life. This means that Jewish understanding of a particular object or idea is embedded within the Hebrew word that is used to describe it. For example, in the Genesis, the Torah tells us that Adam named the animals. The Medrash describes this act was an incredible feat that's even beyond the angels could even do that. If names were arbitrary, there's no reason why this should be deemed such a special skill set. There must be a deeper existential truth to be uncovered within a name, and not everybody can do that. And the mystics explain that our purpose in this world is to utilize our unique gifts of comprehension and creativity, gifts that are unique to the human race, that did not exist even amongst the angels, that each and every one of us, and I'm talking to everybody here today, we all have the ability to uncover the divine source and the purpose of every created being that is embedded in their name, and to assist in utilizing all things in the service of the ultimate purpose. Before God gave his laws at Sinai, at Mount Sinai, which is the holiday of Shavuos coming up, our mission as humans was to bring wisdom of each creation to fruition by recognizing and actualizing the purpose of its creation, which is buried within its name. So if your name is Amichai, if your name is Eitan, your lesson, the name that your parents provided you, was more than just a name for Social Security and Medicare. It was there to actually, in your name, whatever name you have the ability, the keys to unlock your very purpose in life. In God's language, words are portals through which we can discover the meanings of things from a divine perspective. When looking to make sense of ourselves, our world, and everything that transpires within it, the key to unlocking this deeper meaning can be found within the language of God's book, of course, the Bible, the Torah. So, as it's brought down in the Sefer Yetzirah, one of the earliest books of Jewish mysticism, there it asserts that the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet is to be considered the DNA of the entire cosmos, the letters with which God created the universe. Can you imagine? Hebrew words, particularly those of biblical derivative, provide a portal, an entree, so to speak, into the essence of everything. This allows us a glimpse into God's mind, to peer at God's intent, and to gain insight into the purpose and the meaning of everything in this world. And I'm going to give you some examples today as well. So Hebrew words are therefore the key that can unlock hidden meanings and significance of whatever is called by their name, including its philosophical, psychological, and theological significance. And therefore the purpose or the outlook in today's program is exactly that. Exactly that. And I want to say people actually who are joining us from Merrick. I have no idea where Merrick is. I know in Hebrew the word, we talk about words, Merrick comes from marak, which means soup. Marak. So I wonder if that's Marak or is it Iraq? I'm not sure. But they tell me there's people listening in Merrick. I need some clarification on the meaning of the word Merrick. So let's spend a little moment today on some words, because these particular words I've chosen as examples will provide us windows of insight into Jewish history, into thought, into culture, into meaning, into practice. And I hope I'm able to share this with you in a meaningful way. The first word I'm choosing for today is the word simcha. Simcha. Okay, simcha. I mean, make sure I want to let you know that I'm watching very carefully those who are posting. I want to say hello to everybody on the radio. I can't see you, but just like myself, we all, if you're on the radio, you have a great face for radio. I want to thank you for that. And for those who are tuning in on the Facebook, say hello, make a post. I'll be happy to recognize you. So let's take a look at the word simcha. Simcha. What I'm here to share with you that the word simcha is much deeper than you think. Let's start from scratch. If only we were more successful, more comfortable, more respected, if only we had a perfect bill of health, less to worry about and more to look forward to, then we'll most certainly be happy. Or so we think. We tend to see happiness as the result of our circumstances, relegating it to some sort of a distant realm. If only, then I'll be happy. If only, then I'll be happy. Leaving us little we can do to influence its happening, to make it, actually happen. Accordingly, the word happiness is derived from a Middle English word hap, H-A-P. You know what that stands for, my friends? Happenstance, haphazard, implying random chance or luck. If you were lucky enough to be born into an ideal circumstances, you would have the conditions needed to be happy. If not, it seems that there isn't much you can do to impact your sense of satisfaction in life, and as we would say in French, sei gesinnt, nothing's happening. Nothing is happening. On the other hand, when we look at it from the Torah view, from the Jewish perspective, the Hebrew word simcha, besimcha, the Hebrew word for being in a state of happiness, besimcha, shares the same letters as the word machshava. Machshava in Hebrew is the word for thought. So what is the connection? If you take the word besimcha, I am besimcha, I am in happiness, the same Hebrew letters, Bei, Shin, Mem, Ches, Hey, you interchange them, makes the word machshava, thought. What could be the connection between the word for thought and the word for happiness that share the same letters? So Judaism's view of happiness, it's a way of thinking, which is something that we can consciously direct, as opposed to a state of being that results from some sort of circumstances outside of our control. As long as we can control our thoughts, our machshava, we can actually help direct our happiness. So from this perspective, happiness does not derive from an objective state of affairs, but from our subjective state of mind. Put simply by Plato, a good friend of Dr. Kolshevsky's, reality is created by the mind. We can change our reality by changing our mind. Hastamaisa. Meaning, it isn't luck or happenstance that ensures our attainment of happiness. Rather, it is the way we think about and process the circumstances we encounter along our path. This simple idea has huge implications. It means that we can instantly achieve the happiness we seek by what, my friends? By changing our socks. No, by adjusting the focus of our thoughts. This deceptively simple idea reveals that the greatest obstacle to our happiness is the mind's tendency to fixate itself on the limitations of our circumstances and to regulate and take for granted the myriad of fantastic good things that each of us experience every single day. Each time we have a positive experience, we actually raise our expectations, something exponentially, constantly needing more and more stimulus to achieve the same level of satisfaction. In the words of our sages, he who has 100 wants 200, and he who has 200 wants 400. As a result, we never reach the satisfaction we need. And happiness remains an endless pursuit, a never-ending hedonic kind of treadmill, always reaching beyond our reach. From this perspective, fulfillment becomes, my friends, a frustrating illusion that never ever happens. So Judaism's solution to the happiness problem is to view happiness as a thought, making it an indefinable or an infinitely renewable resource, always at our disposal. We're in charge rather than some sort of existential lottery ticket, so to speak. All it requires is a minor investment of our mental energy and our enhanced awareness to stop thinking only about what's missing in our lives and to focus instead of what is present in our lives. In the words of the Mishnah, who is wealthy? Hasameach bechelkei, he who is satisfied with his lot. I'm not talking about Lot's Avenue, in Brooklyn. True satisfaction, that's called New Lot's Avenue, by the way. Speak to Dr. Manis, he knows all about that area. True satisfaction in life comes not from having the things we want, but from wanting the things we have. To this end, there is a Jewish practice, right, of reciting at least 100 blessings each day. Why? To seek out every opportunity to remember and verbally acknowledge our gratitude for those basic amenities of life. For in life, the only things we truly have are the things that we appreciate. The letters that make up the word simcha in Hebrew, shin, mem, ches, hey, also spell the word shemacha, which means to erase, teaching us a key component of happiness is our ability to live fully in the moment, erasing, macha, at least temporarily, any painful thoughts about the past or anxious thoughts relating to the future. Now is where true happiness is found. The Baal Shem Tov taught, the Baal Shem Tov, the founding Hasidic master, he said the following: "You are where your thoughts are," meaning that one's true location is where their mind is focused. The letters of the word sameach, happy, also spell the Hebrew word for happiness, simcha. Sameach also spells the word sham moach, which translates the location, sham moach, that's where your head is, the location of one's thoughts. When we do not recognize that we are in control of our own happiness, guess what? We live a near constant state of anxiety and disconnect. And that becomes a defining feature of our lives. But when we realize that we have the capacity to choose and change our thoughts at any moment, we come to appreciate that the key to enduring happiness lies entirely in our hands. So I would say the big idea that I'm sharing at this moment is happiness is the product of our own subjective state of mind rather than our own objective state of affairs. It once happened, a man came to Rabbi Dov Ber, who was the Maggid of Mezrich. He was the student of the Baal Shem Tov that I just mentioned. And he had a question. What was his question? The Talmud tells us that a person is supposed to bless God for the bad just as he blesses him for the good. How is this possible? And our sages said that one must accept without complaint or bitterness whatever happens from heaven. I'll be able to understand. I can accept that. Accept whatever happens. Ultimately, everything's for the good. But what does it mean to thank God? To bless and thank God also for the seemingly negative. I understand we would thank God for the good things, but we're saying that you have to bless God for the bad things. But how can a human being possibly react to those experiences as bad in exactly the same way he responds to those which are that he experiences in a good way? How can a person be grateful for his troubles as he is for his joys? So the rabbi said, listen, to find an answer to your question, you're going to visit my student. His name was Reb Zushi from the town of Anapoli. He can help you with this matter. So Reb Zushi, he travels there. He warmly welcomes his guests, invites him in to make himself at home. The visitor decided to observe Reb Zushi's conduct before he asked him the question. Before long, he concluded that this host truly exemplified this Talmudical teaching that so puzzled him. He couldn't think of anyone who suffered more hardship in his life than this man. He was a frightful pauper. There was never enough to eat in this rabbi's home. His family was beset with all kinds of afflictions and illnesses. Yet, Reb Zusha always had good humor and cheerfulness, constantly expressing his gratitude to Hashem for the Almighty for his kindness. But what was his secret? How does he do it? So the visitor finally decided to pose this question. I wish to ask you something, he said to his host. In fact, that's the purpose of my visit. My Rebbe, advised me to come to you to provide me with an answer. And Reb Zusha said to him, what is your question? So the visitor repeated it, what he'd asked the Maggid. You raise a good point, says Rabbi Zusha, after thinking the matter through. But why did our Rebbe send you to me? How would I know? He should have sent you to someone who's experienced suffering. I think this little story speaks for itself. It's how you look at life, how you interpret it, and where you hold. Let me say hello to everybody joining us here. We're on WHPC Facebook Live. We're on Rabbi Perl Facebook Live. We're on the radio. My goodness, all throughout the week you can go and visit. Tell your friends to go back and visit us. And you see the podcast at WHPC on my Facebook. My friends, it's an honor. It's an unbelievable opportunity that we have every Sunday morning from 8 to 9 for us to get together and to share ideas. So let's take another example. We're discussing the importance of a word in Hebrew is not just a name, a word, an arbitrary description, but really reflects its depth. So the next word that I'm going to talk about now, the power of the word, is what I call nisayon. Nisayon means challenges. That's the Hebrew word nisayon. Now, what does that mean? What are we going to? We're going to have a little journey now on that ability. I'm going to say hello to Barry Wohl, and he asked a good question. Should I keep trying to make someone happier who doesn't seem to want to be happy? Yes, you just be your example, Barry, and do it nicely. Do it in a friendly way, not in a judgmental way, and the message will eventually come through. It's obviously people... I have to be open about this, Barry, and to everybody. Unless you think deeply and you spend time and pause each day and do things of a meaningful, transcending way in life, it's going to be very happy to live a happy life. If a person is only focused and become challenged by, physical and financial or whatever self-made things sometimes, it's very hard. Because the example given is a prisoner cannot release himself. He needs someone else on the outside. We sometimes put ourselves into our own prison by the way we look at life. And that's why an outsider, a friend, someone who cares, like we were discussing the importance of saying hello to somebody who's alone, you're coming in from the outside and providing them with a new level of understanding. So it's all worth it. And also, dear friends, don't ever put someone down who may not be reacting to your good efforts. It doesn't matter. Just keep on doing it, and eventually it will make a difference. And it does make a difference. The person may not want to be accepting of your overtures of kindness, but you just keep on going. So let's look at the next one, the idea of nisayon, another Hebrew word. Nisayon translates as a challenge. Life is full of tests and challenges. No one escapes this fact. The deeper question is why? What is the purpose of all these tests? Is there a way to prepare for them? And what is the rubric, so to speak, of passing them? The answer to these questions can be found within the very language we use to construct and consider them. A test or trial is typically understood as a means to determine the state of the development of somebody, like in school, or how something that has the person achieved something. This can be gleaned from the etymological of the words themselves. Test or testi, T-E-S-T-E, in Middle English is a Middle English word that was borrowed from the Old French, which refers to an earthen vessel, especially a pot in which metals were tried. Similarly, the word trial is based on an Anglo-French word triet, T-R-I-E-T, meaning an act or process of testing, a putting to proof by examination or experiment. In either case, the subject or object being tested was viewed with a necessary degree of doubt. The test or trial was administered as a way for an outside party to verify the integrity of the person being tested. But here is, my friends, this is why you're listening to the program here this morning. In Judaism, it's completely different. A test is not meant to assess or establish the qualities of the person being tested, like in a school or whatever, SATs and LSATs, etc. Rather, the purpose of the test is to elicit, to invoke, to wake up dormant strengths and unique talents that the person has that lies within the person. It's a totally different perspective. Now, let's take an example. We talk about God testing Abraham, our forefather. Sages, we learned this only yesterday, enumerate 10 divinely orchestrated tests that Abraham encountered in the course of his life. The first was when Nimrod forced him to choose between renouncing his belief in the one Almighty God or to be thrown into the fiery furnace. What was the 10th? We all know. When God instructs him to bind his son Isaac on the altar. So what was the purpose behind such a whole series of unending spiritual challenges? Along these lines, along comes the Zohar, the mystical source, and says, if God is all-knowing, why did he need to test Abraham? Didn't God already know the outcome? The answer is that God tested Abraham to provide him with an opportunity to activate those latent potentials for courage and commitment that God knew already that existed within. In other words, these 10 tests were not for God to see how faithful Abraham was. They were for Abraham to actualize the depths of his great spiritual potential. So appropriately, the Hebrew word for challenge or test in Hebrew is nisayon. It's rooted in the word nes, nun samach, which means to raise up. As the Zohar explains, God tests the righteous only to elevate them to greatness. But for such elevation to occur, we must rise above our natural fear and aversions to challenges, which is alluded in the related word lanus. Lanus means to run away. Judaism teaches us to lean into our challenges instead of running from them, because our personal and collective trials and tribulations are designed to help us unlock such untapped energies and abilities, empowering us to exceed on our own expectations of our capabilities. This realization itself is the integral part of the process of unlocking this infinite potential hidden within ourselves. Daunting as our struggles often feel, defeatists' attitudes must not prevail. God is never against us. He's never against you. In fact, according to Jewish view, any test or trial that we may experience is not an expression of God's doubt in your capacity. As people say, why is God doing this to me? But it's the opposite. When we do face a trial, this is absolutely God's way of saying he has complete faith in your ability. As the Talmud points out, God does not make impossible demands of any of his creations. Just as it's inconceivable that loving parents would knowingly give their child a task beyond their abilities, God, our loving Father, would not present any of us with any challenges that exceeds our ability or is not good, not for our own good. So accordingly, whenever a person encounters one of life's many tests, it is actually a sign of God's trust in them and their potential. Rather than being an expression of, let's call it, divine reservation, every test in life is actually a cosmic vote of confidence in that person. In fact, our personal struggles can even be seen as a sign of favor, for God, as the term used, chastises those he loves. A test is God's way of saying, you're ready for the next level. Interestingly, I want to remind everybody, every morning, early in the morning when we wake up and we follow our prayers, it does say, we ask Hashem, please don't give us any tests. Nobody's looking for the tests. But it is God's way of saying, I believe in you. Interestingly, the word nes also comes from the word refers to a banner, because each person's unique tests in life are like a badge of honor that represents their particular journey of personal growth and achievement. In other words, our struggles are what shape and form us, giving us the distinct stamp and signature based on how we respond to them. This empowering idea is expressed in a very interestingly paradoxical Talmudical statement. And it says like this, if I remember it right, the more righteous one is, the more powerful their inclination to evil. In more simple words, the greater you are, the greater animal side that we have, or the greater Yetzer Hara we have. Now, this seems to be counterintuitive. One would think that a person's level of righteousness is determined by and should be directly correspond to the degree to which they have managed to diminish, to uproot any evil inclination. But here we have the Talmud telling us the contrary is true. The more one grows spirituality, the greater their strength with ego and temptation becomes. This is because the more righteous one becomes, the more capable they are at overcoming even subtle and more substantial challenges. In other words, serious moral and spiritual struggles are not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength and latent potential that we might unlock and activate through our productive perseverance in the face of our life's challenges. Significantly, another meaning of nes, the root of the word nisayon, which means the word challenge in Hebrew, nes is miracle, implying that the elevation of the supernatural over the natural. That's what a miracle is. Hasidic teaches us that from the divine point of view, every test in our life provides the exact conditions conducive for us to, I could say, surpass our own natural limitations, bringing forth a miracle within our own personal life. As such, no situation in life, no matter how challenging, should be seen as impossible to deal with in a constructive manner. We always have the opportunity to exercise free choice in the way we respond to any circumstance. Every test of our faith or character, therefore, is a potential portal of transformation for our own as well as for our ultimate good. It all depends on how we approach it, how we process it, how we pass through it. As the great Hasidic master of Nachman of Breslov famously taught, when you search for God and encounter an obstacle, do not try to avoid it or seek to go around or even over it, for God himself is to be found within that very obstacle. This perspective is deeply rooted in the concept of divine providence, hashgacha pratis, the belief that God is in charge of our world and oversees its minutest detail with every little detail that we have. I want to say thank you to Zalman Weg. Good morning to you from Fair Lawn, New Jersey. Wow, can't believe it. You made it through the tunnel. Did you have your passport available, or did they just you just mentioned you're a member of our synagogue? I guess that's how you went through there without any problems. Good morning to Shel Varon Kovarski. Thank you again. She discusses, doesn't Nes mean a miracle? If so, as we face our challenges, we sometimes feel as it was one, and we feel great joy. Beautiful thoughts. Thank you. Thank you for distilling it in such just few words. How beautiful. So the knowledge of such a divine design behind reality compels us to overcome our naturally instinctive feelings of fear and despair when faced with any challenge, especially one we thought we were above or beyond. Instead, it empowers us to find the hidden meaning and blessings built into every hardship. Good morning to Keith Drucker. God, like our own personal trainer, is intimately aware of both our perceived limitations and our true abilities. He therefore, I guess we could say, strategically, in a certain orchestrated our unique obstacle courses in order to help us access our deepest strengths and to achieve our highest potentials. For truly, each and every one of us is nothing less than a miracle in the making. Our tests and struggles in life are but the dark backdrop against which our inner light is able to shine. So again, I would say this big idea of this particular word, nisayon, that tests and trials in life are an indication of an inner strength, not weaknesses, They are God's way of letting us know that we are ready for the next level. A little story, a traditional Jew who found himself in the grips of a spiritual struggle once visited the Lubavitcher Rebbe to discuss his religious quandary. He desperately wanted to live a life according to Jewish law, yet his heart was persistently leading him in a different direction. After presenting his situation to the Rebbe, the man fell silent. He braced himself for a strong rebuke, expecting to be told in no uncertain terms how spiritually compromising his passions were. The Rebbe, too, remained silent for a while. And the Rebbe said to him, I envy you. This is what the Rebbe said. I envy you. This guy's just poured his heart out and telling about all kinds of things, things that he's involved in, which are far away from an appropriate living of life. And he expected the Rebbe to go after him, with both barrels. And the Rebbe said to him, I envy you. Caught off guard, the young man did not quite understand the Rebbe's meaning. And the Rebbe continued like this. There are many ladders in life, and each person is given his or her own ladder. The ladders present themselves as life's challenges and difficult choices. The tests you face are the ladders that elevate you to great heights. The greater the challenge, the higher the ladder. God has given you these difficult tests, the Rebbe said to this person, because He believes that you can overcome them, and He has endowed you with the ability to do so. Only the strongest are presented with a ladder as challenging as yours. Don't you see then why I envy you? The Rebbe elevated this person and said, you have the ability, and I know the story, the backstory, and he did make a complete change in his life. Wow. It's not over, my friends. It's not over. It's not over till it's over, as they say. Until, it's over. Another word, another powerful word. This is the word that talks from tzara, right? I'm sure we all know the word tsuris. A group of friends were discussing what they would do differently if they were running the world instead of God. Pretty good idea. Maybe sometimes in Washington they think they're doing that. One said, you know what I would do if I was God? I was running the world instead of God? I would eradicate disease, hunger, and poverty. Another one said, I would get rid of natural disasters. A third one suggested I would abolish bigotry and prejudice of all kinds. The last guy in the group, who sat silently listening to everybody else, you know what he said? I would keep the world exactly as it is, except I would understand why. It is physically impossible for the human brain, with its limited abilities, to grasp an infinite God, or for that matter, to understand His ways. Put plainly in well-known, it's in a well-known way, certainly, by the great Jewish philosopher Rabbi Yosef Alba, he put it this way: if I knew him, I would be him. As a result, we have great difficulties coming to grips with the inevitable pain and suffering of life, primarily because we have only access to a partial view of this big picture. We are therefore left with only a portion of the story in which we are playing an integral part. This can be compared to a patient who goes in for surgery and suddenly wakes up on the operating table with no recollection of the procedure for which they came in. All they see is their body opened on the table and a bunch of masked people hovering over them with knives. Of course the patient would be horrified until the doctor explains to them the purpose of this painful process, after which he calms down and he allows the doctor to finish the job, which saves, of course, or at least improves their life after this fact. So simply put, our infinite perspective, because of our finite limitations, this hinders our ability to understand the deeper significance of our painful experiences. which then leads to a feeling of affliction. It is no exaggeration to say that few things in life cause more suffering than the feeling that our pain is in vain. This existential predicament, again, is alluded in the Hebrew word for misfortune, tzura, or tzara, which is etymologically rooted in the word tsar, narrow, Mitzrayim, narrow. In Jewish thinking, we are prone to psychological and spiritual suffering on account of our painful experience or challenging experiences. Because, why? Because we only see a narrow sliver. I'm not talking about Slivovitz, a narrow sliver of the bigger picture. Therefore, the antidote to tsaras, the existential feeling of misfortune, is to zoom out and try to see life and the world from God's perspective, so to speak. Learning to view reality in this light is not easy. We all know that. It requires a firm trust that God is in control of everything, including the minutiae of every single thing, down to every single thing that's happening to us. God knows everything and is involved. And that's why even at the end of life, what do we say? Baruch Dayan Emes, blessed is the true judge. When we hear bad tidings, when a person passes away, God forbid. That, in a nutshell, is the foundation of the Jewish worldview. The worldview teaches that we each have the ability to overcome or transform any hardship or things that we may experience by actively choosing to find meaning and good that is concealed within this. This certainly does not mean that we won't ever experience discomfort or intolerable pain. However, when we are able to put it into context, our pain as part of a greater good, even if it's beyond our understanding, it actually empowers us to endure such suffering or even inspire us to harness it as a fuel for future evolution and growth. As Viktor Frankl put it, in some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it finds a meaning. Indeed, the very same Hebrew words for why, lama, also spells lama, which means for what, towards what end. This conveys the Jewish approach to life and challenge, which is not to ask why me, but what now? In other words, how can I use this setback as a springboard for growth and self-development? And I remember, if my memory serves me right, the same numerical value of lama, for what, is the same numerical value as bitachon, which is trust. Interesting. Interestingly, the letters for the word tzara also spells tzohar, which means a window. Tzohar tasa lateva. In other words, suffering opens a window in our deepest recesses, allowing us to become aware of and gain access to some dormant potentials and deeper reservoirs of energy and insight that might have otherwise remained unrealized. We could go on and on and on, but recognize the power of each word and the depth that it provides us. This is your host, Rabbi Perl. Thank you so much for joining. Wishing everybody today Happy Mother's Day. Reach out to someone who is alone. Give them a phone call. Make them feel good. Elevate them. May Hashem bless us only with good news and no tests, but only great accomplishments and everything that we look forward to. Have a wonderful week, everybody.